Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Masters of Technology Happy Hour, where once a week I have a drink with someone I meet in the course of business, but someone I'd like to get to know better as a person.
Very nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again, and welcome to
Yeah,
the show.
yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
I've had the pleasure of meeting Tetsuo at a wedding. He was the brother of a friend of our family, and I met him, his lovely wife and daughter. The most interesting thing about Tetsuo I found, he's a nice guy, but I also found he has a most fascinating sport, hobby, passion, it seems, and it's technically called freediving.
We hold the breath, and
Uh,
with one single breath,
uh,
we dive very deep and compete the depth.
it's constant weight, correct? The
Yeah, there's a
same.
many disciplines, but I do a constant weight, which I use a weight, but I cannot drop it at the bottom. So I have to bring back to the surface again.
It's a sport, and you're very good at it. You hold the record for the oldest person to dive at 100-meter constant wave. Is that correct? That's a Guinness record.
Yeah, I made it last year, 58 years and 235 days old. I made that record.
Ah, congratulations.
Thank you.
I think you also, now I have to see this movie, but I think there's a Netflix movie made about divers. Are you in that movie?
Only a just bit, just a second, at the middle of the movie, but
Okay.
only a second, just a second. I
Wait a
was
second.
there. I was competing with the athletes in the movies.
Yeah. That was 100 meters, and you went just to 100 meters. Now your record is greater than that, right? 113
Yeah,
meters.
yeah, 130 meters.
113.
Yeah, 113.
Right.
I think that
Okay.
is about 371 feet,
What's the pressure down there?
about 12 times water pressure than the surface.
So you work for an engineering company. What made you go into this field?
Okay. I studied electrical engineering at university, and my father was an entrepreneur and ran an optical manufacturing company. So from a very young age, I watched him build and run a business. Because of that, I always wanted to become like him, who create a company and run business. So I was interested in technology, but not because I wanted to become a pure engineer. I wanted to understand technology well enough to build business around it. Yeah.
Did you ever imagine you'd end up as an executive leading engineers, or were you always interested in just the technical side?
So after graduating from university, I joined a Japanese general trading firm. In Japan, general trading firm is not just a trading company. It also invests in business and develops new opportunities around the world. So I thought it was the best place to learn the fundamentals of business. About 10 years later, around the year 2000, I started my own venture company in Japan. At that time, NTT Docomo, a Japanese mobile carrier, had launched iMode, which became the world's first commercially successful mobile internet service. My company developed things like mobile advertising, mobile coupon, and mobile membership systems. This was about 7 years before smartphone appeared. I wasn't the person writing code. My role was to bring together engineers, sales, marketing, funding, and strategy, and turn those pieces into a real business.
I want to
Yeah.
get to the real interesting part, which is your diving. I talk to engineers all the time. First time I've talked to somebody who's actually diving and doing this for a living. Okay, so most people don't decide to dive deep in a single breath. How did you choose free diving as your hobby or your passion?
My connection to the ocean started with windsurfing during university. When there was no wind, I started snorkeling, catching abalone and octopus. But in Japan, spearfishing gradually became more restricted So I started trying freediving as a sport instead. So at first it was just curiosity, but little by little I got more deeply involved in freediving.
It's far removed from what you studied, of course, but did you feel that your education or training gave you any advantage in diving?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. My engineering mindset helps a lot. In deep freediving, performance is not determined by a single factor. It's about several factors, multiple together, like breath hold ability, your equalization technique, relaxation, and the flexibility of the lungs. Lung flexibility is especially important at great depth. At 100-meter, the pressure is about 11 times higher than surface. So the air volume in the lungs is compressed to roughly 1/11th of its surface volume. So if your lungs are not flexible enough, you can injure, and in severe case, it can become life-threatening. And each of those factors can be broken down even further. For example, breath hold ability includes CO2 tolerance, oxygen efficiency, swimming efficiency, and ability to stay calm under stress. So I really do see the body as a system. If one element is weak, it limits the whole result. That is why freediving is such a logical sport. You have to identify the bottleneck, understand the failure mode, and improve the part of the system that is constraining performance the most. So that way of thinking feels very close to engineering. Analyze the system, identify the limiting factor, test solutions, and keep refining. So it helps a lot.
Engineers are real good at math. They have to be. Do you find that too, doing calculations in your head when you're diving? Or do you have instruments or that help you make those calculations that you need?
You mean during the dive,
Yeah.
the brain consumes a lot of oxygen, so thinking something during the dive is not helpful at all.
Oh,
So I try to just relax and be empty,
oh, okay.
just like meditation.
I see. Oh, it's meditative. So it's not like I always think when people are scuba diving that they have to do a lot of calculations about the oxygen mix and the depth and
Mm.
pressure, but you're meditating more or
Yeah,
less.
but
Interesting.
before diving, we
Yeah.
calculate a lot.
I've heard that a lot. The brain actually consumes a lot of oxygen when you're thinking. Is that,
Actually, brain consumes more than your muscle.
tell me about your first serious dive and when you realized this wasn't just a hobby. This you could actually compete at a very elite level.
I would say my first serious dive was in 2012 when I competed at Vertical Blue in Bahamas. Vertical Blue is one of the most prestigious freediving competition in the world, like Wimbledon of tennis. And at that time, my personal best in constant weight was 70 meters, which is about 230 feet. And that disciplines, you dive down and back up on a single breath using a monofin. Even now, freediving is still one of my hobbies I'm most passionate about. I also enjoy horseback riding and sailing. For example, this year I plan to go to Mongolia and do a 3-day, 200-kilometer horseback riding across the grass field. So for me, freediving becomes very serious, but it's still one of my great adventures.
We'll have to have another show where you tell us about your adventures on horseback, right? All these adventures that involve regular breathing.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big adventure in Mongolia.
It's a very intimidating sport, free diving. How did you train your body and your mind?
Freediving may look intimidating from the outside, but the training is actually very gradual. You need to start shallow, maybe 5 meters, And once you get used to it, then you increase to 10 meters, then 15 and 20. So you don't suddenly jump into deep water. So your body adapts and your mind adapts with that depth. So in freediving, fear is not something you overcome with courage. You reduce it through preparation. For the body, training is about building the specific abilities you need, like breath holding and ear equalization technique, and relaxation and swimming efficiency. For the mind, confidence comes from training quality and training volume. So if you have trained enough and if you trust your preparation, you can stay calm during the dive.
The vertical blue that you mentioned before, is that when you realized you could compete at an elite level? Is that when you said you could maybe even try?
Yeah. But 130 meters, I made at the Cebu in Philippines last year.
Okay, the Philippines.
My deepest record at vertical blue was 97 meter.
97.
Yep.
Oh, almost there.
Almost.
100 is 100 meters a like a in bicycle. I do bicycle riding. They call it a century. That's a big thing to do, 100 miles in one day. Is that same for
Yeah,
diving, 100 meters?
yeah, same for most of the deep divers,
Yeah.
3 digit, which is 100 meter, is everybody's goal or dream.
Uh, Tell me how the body begins to beg to breathe, convulsions, for example, and how you overcame that urge.
Okay. So when you hold your breath, carbon oxide, CO2 gradually increase in your body. That rising CO2 is what triggers the urge to breathe. Interestingly, that urge is not caused primarily by lack of oxygen. It's mainly caused by rising CO2. Through training, your brain gradually learns that higher CO2 levels are not immediately dangerous. As a result, your body becomes more tolerant and the breathing reflex comes later, which allow you to hold your breath longer.
Is your body being hurt then by the CO2 consumption? Are you doing any long-term damage? I guess not. You look like you're in pretty good shape.
There is no damage.
No
But
damage.
if you keep, stop your breathing, you may black out.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the kind of dangerous.
I'm an amateur photographer and a woodworker. I find many engineers also indulge in photography and woodworking. Our first guest had an outlet in music. Have you met other free divers who are also engineers?
Yes, I think there are quite a few engineers in the freediving community. Freediving is a very analytical sport. It requires you to understand diving physiology, the effect of water pressure, and how to train each limiting factor systematically. That kind of thinking naturally appeals to people who enjoy analyzing systems, identifying bottlenecks, and defining performance. So yes, I have met many freedivers who think in a very engineering way, even if their profession is not always engineering.
You're the first diver I've met that you know about Venn diagrams? They say the intersection of Venn diagrams
Mm-hmm.
is, I thought it was zero intersection there between free diving, but you know several. Is there a high mortality rate in this sport? Is your wife really worried about you? How much insurance do you carry?
Unfortunately, most of the insurance doesn't cover the competition. That's really unfortunate.
Have you had any close calls?
Yes, I have several. I talk about the one moment during a dive. My lanyard, which is connect me to the diving rope, got tangled around the bottom plate at 50-meter depth. So I need to detach it. And when I did, I suddenly realized that I was sinking deeper away from the rope. Since I had no fins in that discipline, I quickly swam back to the rope and pulled myself back to the surface. That was definitely a scary moment.
I am a distance runner, marathons mostly. Ideal conditions for a marathon are mid 50 degrees Fahrenheit, low humidity. What are the ideal conditions for a dive?
For a deep dive, the conditions that usually make good performance easier are moderately warm water, no current, and high visibility. Warm water helps the body stay relaxed, and no current means you don't need to waste energy fighting against the current. And good visibility makes the dive feel psychologically easier and more comfortable. There is also a phase in deep freediving called free fall. Usually, once you go deeper than around 20 meters, your lungs compress enough that your body becomes negatively buoyant. At that point, even if you stop kicking, you keep sinking. So instead of swimming, you let yourself fall without moving much. That helps conserve oxygen, which is very important in deep dive. It's also one reason current is not ideal because during free fall, or any current can disturb your position and make that phase less efficient. For me, that is actually the most pleasant part of the dive. So during free fall, I try to stay completely relaxed and focus only on your equalization. So at a place like Dean's Blue Hole in the Bahamas, where vertical blue is held, the visibility can be very high, but because it is a vertical hole, after around 40 meters, the light no longer reaches you as well, and it becomes very dark. So free falling down through that darkness feels almost like being in outer space. And when you begin to see the light on the bottom plate, it can look like a spaceship waiting for you in the dark. So in general, moderate water temperature, no current, and high visibility make it easier to produce good result. As for darkness, I think that comes down to personal preference.
Uh, Tell me about the darkness. So light doesn't penetrate past a certain depth. Did you say 40 meters?
In case of blue hole,
Yeah,
yes, 40
40
meter.
meters. Okay. And you have no light source on your body? You,
Yes, I do. I have a torch light on the head attached to my wetsuit.
oh, I see. So you can always see the rope and I would
Yeah,
imagine there's
so
depth markings on the rope.
yeah, so I can only see the rope in front of me.
I
That's
see.
it.
Have you ever aborted a dive midway?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Equalization problems are the most obvious sign. If my ears don't equalize properly, I make early turn immediately because if I force it any further, the risk of rupturing my eardrums becomes much higher. But that is not the only reason. If the sensation around my lungs feels different from usual, or if I can't not fully focus, those are also signs that I should turn early. In freediving, pushing a dive when something feels wrong is usually a bad sign. So if something feels off, I would rather turn early and save it for another day. It's not about proving anything on one dive. It's about being able to keep diving safely for the long term.
Yes. You're a wise man. I think a lot of people that practice sport don't have that outlook. They'll take a lot of risks. Tell me this about you said equalizing that's the pressure of the inner ear to the water pressure. How often does that happen where your ears don't equalize?
In the beginnings, you have to equalize often because water pressure change a lot. But when you go deeper and deeper, the pressure change gradually, little by little. So that means you don't need equalize often in the great depth.
I see. Is a pressure in your ear equalized by through the a station tube in the mouth?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And sometimes that doesn't happen?
So you have to push your air from the mouth to ear.
Okay.
But when you go deep and deep, your air in the mouth gets smaller and smaller. So your air is not enough to push your eardrums. That happens in the last moment.
I see. You have to learn quite a little bit about medicine and physiology then with the sport. Like I said, I ride my bike for long distances. So far, I've resisted getting an electric bike. To me, does that electric bike seems like scuba diving, diving with scuba tanks. Would you ever go diving with a scuba tank now?
Yes, I have a certificate, but I've never tried
Uh,
after I got license. Actually, only do I do it free diving, no scuba. So to me, scuba diving is a completely different activity. What I love about free diving is its simplicity and the way it lets me face myself. One breeze, one body, one descent. So scuba is more about exploration, which I can understand and respect, but it's not what attracts me personally. So at least for now, I don't feel much temptation to add tanks. What interests me is the purity of doing it on a single breeze.
How do they test you to make sure you haven't been too reckless? You have to, there's a protocol when you come out of your dive, correct?
Yeah, in competition, you can only announce a depth that is about 3 to 5 meters deeper than your seasonal best. So you cannot make a reckless jump. And the diving rope is set only to that announced depth. So even if you feel great, you cannot go beyond it. Even if the ocean conditions look the same, it doesn't mean your body is the same as yesterday. Just because you could reach a certain depth yesterday doesn't mean you should assume you can do it again today. Your physical condition changes every day because of fatigue, recovery, mental focus, and stress. In that sense, your condition rises and falls almost like the tide. So the sport has external rules to prevent recklessness, but it also demands honest self-awareness. You have to understand where you are physically and mentally on that particular day.
You're also affected by what you eat, correct? Certain foods produce gas, which could be
Yeah,
a problem, right?
yeah, that affects a lot.
Do you have take any precautions and do you have a regular diet that you follow before a competitive dive?
Yeah, especially before the day before the competition, I really avoid like a meat because it takes time to how to say
Di- Digest?
yeah, digest it.
Is the goal to not have any food in your system?
Yeah, before dive, I try not to eat much.
Okay.
Only one banana. That's it.
It seems the opposite of distance events because in distance events you have to load your body with
Yeah, but
carbohydrates.
at least 3 hours before the competition, I
Yeah.
don't eat anything. I don't eat anything.
How about hydration? Is that a factor?
I get enough hydration.
What effect does the diving have on the hydration of your body? Does it? You're in water, but you're also at a ridiculous temperature.
Because we wear a wetsuit, we sweat, we get sweat a lot. So having hydration is very important.
Oh, you sweat in there. Oh, these are
Yeah,
warm waters you're diving in.
because most of the place we compete
Yeah,
is the how to say hot place like Bahamas or Cebu,
yeah,
like uh, like 30 degrees Celsius. So it's
yeah.
hot.
Ah,
But under the water, like 100 meter, the water temp is getting cold. So we wear the
I imagined ocean depths as quiet. Is that actually the case, or is that what is going through your mind? You said meditation, right? But are you
yeah,
meditating in a calm environment, or is it noisy down there?
deep water is very quiet. At those depths, you usually don't see many fish and the world feels extremely still and isolated. It can feel lonely, but in a beautiful way. As for what goes through my mind, I really almost nothing. As I said, the brain uses a lot of oxygen, so thinking too much is not helpful for freediving. So I try to stay relaxed and empty, like I said, meditations. So in that sense, a deep dive is not a place for many thoughts. It's more a place for presence.
Has diving taught you anything that engineering could not?
Yeah, the biggest lesson is simple. Its consistency is power. At 50 years and 235 days old, I got a Guinness World Record, and I became the deepest person in history to dive deeper than 100 meters. But that achievement was not talent. It was accumulation of experience. The ocean changes every day, currents, temperatures, visibility. The more conditions you experience, the more your body learns. And another important lesson is the importance of community. Freediving is an individual sport, but you cannot train alone. Safety divers, training partners, and teammates are essential. So having people with the same passion and pushing each other forward is incredibly valuable. That's what I learned.
That's all the questions we had prepared. Anything else you'd like to add about what your sport and your,
I have two daughters.
do they free dive or do
No,
you? They don't.
they have no interest in freediving, unfortunately.
Unfortunately.
But
Would
I
you
tell
like?
you that young people like to compete with other people. But as I said, this sport is more to face yourself.
Yeah.
So when you get older, you can enjoy more about freediving. I think my daughter is too young to enjoy this sport.
I know how you feel because when I try to get my children interested in long distance cycling or long distance running, it's just too boring for them. They can't, they're not interested in, running on pavement for hours at a time or, riding a bike on a road for all day long. That's not what they want to do at
So
all.
the bicycles, maybe you have to face yourself, right?
Yeah. Yes. I think when you get older, you get used to it's not boring anymore. It's more tranquil and peaceful. And and I appreciate that, what you said about diving, that you actually can meditate, because I found that to be my yoga when I went on a bike ride.
Mm.
It was very peaceful for me, and I could think clearly.
It's really interesting to face yourself, like your ego and your impatience. Yeah, everything you have to face.
Yeah, I enjoy the discipline too, like you do, the discipline of your to make your body do things, to see what the limits of your body are. It's very gratifying. Yeah, yeah,
And I really enjoy the process. I improve my limiting factors. It
yeah.
takes time, like every year I improve a little bit.
You're still
And
improving?
yeah, I still improving.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
as I said, my record was made last summer,
Yeah.
3 meters deeper than previous year. So 3 meters improvement. But that before,
Yeah.
my personal record was 97 and I jumped to 110.
Ah,
I started to having my coach teaching me how to swim better with my
yeah.
monofin.
Yeah.
That affected a lot
I
in
see.
performance.
That's for marathoners. That's a big change. 10 meters. For marathons,
Yeah,
it's like 15-minute change
yeah,
in your marathon time.
most of athletes, the performance is very affected by those coach, right?
Yeah.
Even the Olympia.
Yeah. Yeah. Even Olympians. Okay. Is this a rich man's hobby? You have it when you dive. Is it an expedition? Do you have to pay a lot of money to do this?
It really depends.
Yeah,
Actually, you don't need to have much equipment like scuba. You only need your fins, wetsuit, and goggles. That's it.
that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can pay for your coach, but it depends on the coach. But even without a coach, you can enjoy in the ocean, and ocean is free.
Uh,
But if you rent a boat, you have to pay.
mhm.
But you can have an entry from the beach. It's not
Okay.
for rich people. It's for
Okay.
everyone.
I'm watching this movie, The Deepest Breath, right? And
Mm.
I see people like when they come up to the surface and ask them the questions, "Are you okay?" Or I think they ask them specific questions. I,
No, no, no. So after you get on the surface,
yeah,
they have to take out all the equipment like a goggles and nose clip out of your face
yeah.
and make a OK sign on the with the fingers, and you have to say I'm okay.
You have to say I'm
That's
okay.
it.
Okay.
That's it.
They don't make they
But
don't they don't make you
they
answer
don't.
questions like math questions or
They,
something. Right?
no, there's no question. But you have to do the same protocols.
I see.
But when you are out of oxygen,
Uh-huh.
it's really hard to make that protocol.
How many divers are there in like some of these competitions?
It depends on the competition, but usually 40 people or 50.
How much is the entrance fee?
It depends on the size and the place of the competition. The case of like a Baltical Blue, about 1,000 US dollars. But other one like in Cebu, about $500 because the competition is in Bahama cost a lot because you have to gather all the people from around the world. Bahama is very far from any countries.
Yeah, you have to go halfway around the world for that. So basically, you just have the cost of getting to that location, staying on board, acclimating to the water perhaps for a couple of days, and then just do the dive.
In my case, because I have a business,
Yeah,
you know, freedom is not a business. It's just a hobby for me,
yeah.
and I have a daily business, so I cannot take a rest for long. So usually for the Bahama case, so before the competition, maybe 3 days before the competition, I go to Bahama and
Hmm.
train 3 days and then competition. But most of athlete, it's not just hobby.
Yeah.
Most of them is a professional athlete as a freediver. So those people comes like a 1 month prior to the competition, and they train for a period of 1 month. That is very high advantage for them.
Obviously, if you have a job, you can't do that. What's next for you? Are you going for 116 or 100 123?
116, 116 is my next goal.
Okay.
It is a Japanese record for for man. So
Wow.
130 meter is the deepest among active freedivers in Japan. But one man who already retires made 115. So I tried to make 116, 1 meter deeper than his record.
Now that's for any diver, any male diver, not age group.
No, he's much younger than me, but he already retired
Good luck with that. When are you going to play? When is this happening?
in August in Cebu,
August. Cebu. Oh, where is Cebu?
Philippines.
Okay.
Very famous place for scuba diving.
All right, Tetsuo. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining me in
Yeah,
this.
thank you very much for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
And that concludes this episode of the Masters of Technology Happy Hour. I hope you enjoyed our chat and will join me as we talk to some of the most interesting people in the design and engineering software community.